On Get Up. Next up, Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin is optimistic about the availability of T.J. Watt for the game against the Ravens on Saturday. He exited the loss to the Eagles in the fourth quarter with an ankle injury after recording 2 sacks and a forced fumble on his signature punch play. Steelers are 10-4. They've clinched a playoff spot. They're holding on to the number 3 seed right now in the AFC. And because they beat the Ravens in their first matchup this year, a win on Saturday, they would actually clinch the division. The Steelers would be the champions of the AFC North with a win. However, if they were to lose, that race would be up for grabs. Our analytics say it would be essentially a toss-up with 2 games left. And I'll just say that the Steelers then have to turn around and play the Chiefs on Christmas Day. Now, we don't know exactly what the status of Patrick Mahomes is going to be.
Chiefs are going to just forfeit that
game.
But no reason to even play it.
But here's the bottom line. They still, our analytics still give them a 70% chance to win that division. I have to admit I'm surprised by that. I thought that Sunday's game said as much about the Steelers as it did about the Eagles. I think that the Steelers' offense to some degree has been exposed. They are, and I know you're going to say his name, so reliant on one player.
Yeah.
And that's all we talk about in the NFL are teams that can overcome this and overcome that. The Lions basically have the entire phone book on the injured list. And you're telling me that without George Pickens, the Steelers have no chance to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's the facts. I mean, against good teams, right? Against good teams.
Well, basically, they had to play the Ravens and the Chiefs in the next 2 weeks.
But George Pickens is their threat down the field. And if you think about the way that their offense has operated, they're not nearly as efficient, like 30% lower in every meaningful category offensively without Pickens on the field. So him not being there, if that surprised you the way the game went, then you haven't been watching the Steelers because Pickens is the guy down the field. They're not going to pick you apart. They need explosive plays. They need a lot of field goals. They're not going to trade score for score, but they got a heck of a defense. And if they can run the ball decently, they can give themselves a chance to beat a lot of good ones. And by the way, they cause their division a lot of problems.
Right. The reason why I disagree with you, Greeny, is because they won't face another team that's as complete as the Eagles.
Right.
So while their offense isn't very good against the Eagles, they'll be able to produce against other teams a little bit more. But more importantly, their defense will create turnovers, will create short fields, which they did in this game.
Right.
But they'll continue to do it against other teams that aren't as complete as the Eagles.
Yeah, you hear that? News, football team needs their number 1 wide receiver to have a good offense. Shocking. I mean, we knew this was coming with a loss from, versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, the Philadelphia Eagles are a top team in the NFL. Okay? Most people have them to be like favored to get to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl. They are a top team in the NFL. They're a great team, both offensively and defensively. Like he just said, they're the most complete, they're not going to face another team that is as complete as them. So yet losing to them doesn't expose anything. It just is what it is. And to think that, you're going to be able to beat the best teams without your best players is absurd. And it's not shocking. Would the Philadelphia Eagles be able to successfully beat these teams if A.J. Brown wasn't there? I know A.J. Brown leading up to this game wasn't getting a lot of action, but he is crucial. Just that threat alone is crucial. We already know, they've already done this where they looked at the record and Jalen Hurts' stats and the Eagles' stats with A.J. and without A.J. And it's night and day. So under that logic, the Eagles then are really dependent on A.J. Brown. We saw the record without A.J. They lost a couple of those games. All their losses were when A.J. was not playing. But yet, with A.J., they say that the Eagles are a top team in the NFL. So it's okay to be able to acknowledge that the Steelers need their best players to be at their best. Like, that's not breaking news. That's common sense. That's literally common sense. Would the Ravens be as good as they are if Derrick Henry wasn't playing? Like, I don't understand. Like, what? Why did the Chiefs go run out and go get Hopkins and trade for Hopkins? Because was their offense not really working too good? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know. And even when let's use the Lions as another example. That a huge part of that offense, they need Amon-Ra St. Brown going. When Amon-Ra St. Brown isn't going, it's hard to get that offense going. So yes, do we want to say that the Steelers have as much firepower or as deep of a level of resilience to say injuries or whatnot, or just having a player taken out of a game in terms of like, the defense taking a player out of a game, as say maybe like a fully healthy Lions or a fully healthy Eagles. Sure, probably not. But that doesn't mean that the Steelers have now been exposed, or that they can't win now, or they're still not a top team in the NFL now. Like, that's where we just take things too extreme. We see that 1 + 1 = 2. So we say, well, then that means that, 2 + 10,000 has to equal 200 million 10,000. So, well, that's not really a real number here. You're just making stuff up. Congrats. You got 1 + 1 = 2, but everything else you just said after that is a bunch of gibberish. Like, we just went way too extreme now. It's like, what? Did you just say 200 million 10,000? Like, what did you just say? And that's where we go with some of these takes. And again, it actually does drive me legitimately crazy. They actually played that game closer than the score. And if it wasn't for that just really bad fumble, then who knows? Who knows? And yeah, you want to be able to see the Steelers not be so centered around around one guy. I get it. I do. I understand that. But that's a lot. It's a lot of teams. And it's not like this team just falls apart. But again, the Philadelphia Eagles are actually a beautiful example because they're obviously a top team in the NFL. They obviously just beat the Steelers. And yet without A.J. Brown, it was like, they were lost. They were legitimately lost. Even the one game that they won against the Saints was hardly a good game. They were also borderline fortunate to win that game. I mean, again, it was great play by Philly and a tight game, but like that is like one of those games that easily could have gone the other way, most definitely. So that could have been 3 losses right there. So, I don't know. It's I wish, and I said this before this game even played, I wish we could have also seen if the Steelers beat the Eagles. And depending on how the Eagles played, if they didn't play so well, or if they, AJ didn't get a lot of touches and all of that type of stuff, if it would have been the conversation of saying that the Steelers beat the Eagles, and it would have just been like, well, what's wrong with the Eagles? Concerned about the Eagles? I'm almost positive it would have said, Greeny would have came out and said, I think that the Eagles got exposed. They tried to pass the ball to AJ, and Jalen Hurts was just not able to do it. And it wouldn't have been anything about the great defense of the Steelers or something. You know what I mean? Like, it just would have been flipped around. Whoever won that game, it would have been concerned about said team. That said team was exposed. Unless it was like an all-out duel. Unless the score was like 35, 42 to whatever. A lot of these weird score games these days. 44 to 42. Like, then they would have said, wow, those were just 2 high-powered teams going toe-to-toe. Then it would have been like, then no matter who won or lost, they probably still would have had it more favorable. But, yeah, I don't know. I think the defense actually looked pretty good. You're going up against an incredibly deep and potent offense. A.J. Brown, Devontae, Jalen Hurts, Saquon, an awesome O-line. And then on the other side of the ball, you got this top defense in the NFL. That's just, how do you expect yourselves to look great when you're not 100% healthy offensively and you're going up against a top team, a top defense? Yeah, players matter. I'm always so sick of this whole idea of like, well, you just got to find a way. Everyone has injuries. And it's like, okay, sure. But like I always said, then there would be no reason to pay these players as much money as we do. There'd be no reason for it. Because you would just say, oh, whatever, next man up. And it's just not that simple. So if you want to say that the Steelers got exposed because they're not as deep as they would like, fine. I'm okay with that. But I think we're just using the word exposed a little too deeply. Exposed is like, I've exposed you as a fraud. I've exposed you as a liar. No. It's like, okay. We know the Steelers need they need to be healthier. They need to really make sure that they have all the pieces and all the weapons, especially offensively. Because again, it's like if TJ Watt goes down, what do you think this defense will look like? Did that expose the Steelers defense? Oh, this Steelers defense just doesn't look the same without TJ Watt. Again, shocking news. Wow, breaking. Stop the presses. Just absurd. I'm getting too angry in these takes right now, honestly. Just too insane. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Pittsburgh Steelers? Do you think that they were exposed? Do you have any concerns about the Steelers after their loss and just kind of them moving forward this week into Saturday? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.